Well, hey, Kristen, welcome to the Author Revolution podcast. I'm so excited to have you on this show. I've mentioned in the introduction how you came into my sphere. It's been a long time because I actually followed you way back in the day. And we obviously came back into connection when we were at Idaho. And I was just wondering if you, before we get started, could fill my audience in a little bit on who you are and what you do. Loaded
How much
question,
time do
right?
you have? Yeah.
All the
Well,
things.
yeah. I started out, obviously, I wanted to be a novelist, and I wrote my first novel. This was pre-internet and where you had lots of experts that you could actually reach out to and ask questions. And I wrote my first novel. It was 187,000 words long. And I
Wow.
thought, well, that should be long enough. The end. Right. And it had
Right.
romance and comedy and drama and action. It had everything but a plot.
Oh, nice.
And I still remember my first writers meeting because I was kind of embarrassed. I didn't really want to show up because I didn't want to make him jealous with like my natural talent, because I didn't want to make him feel bad.
Right.
And so I hand out my pages and I'm expecting this one thing and I get it back and I'm like, oh, Jesus wept. Like there was no white space left. And back then they gave no figs about your feelings. It was all red pen. And I
Nice.
was just like, it was like, so we have a comment about your plot. Hate it. Your characters, hate them. You're good at everything except for sentences and words. And so I sat in my Honda Civic and I just bust out crying because I left my day job in sales, to which my grandparents who raised me heard blah, 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 writer, blah, joining cult, blah, blah, throwing away college degree. And I'm like, I've got to make this work. And I'm thinking I'm brilliant. Like, I'm willing to say the stuff that no one else is because I have no shame. I remember querying agents and like be worried about simultaneous submissions because what if I had to choose and they were fighting and it would be really awkward at parties in New York? Yes, I was that person.
Love it.
So I joined a writing group, learned how much I did not know because I was too stupid to know what I didn't know. And then I finally get this 187,000 word tome kind of under control. And I go to my first writers conferences where I met my first mentor, who was a Green Beret. And he was like, yeah, this is great, except for you don't have a plot. "Oh, okay, so I can fix, no, you can't fix it." And so I started stalking him because I knew it was coming around the corner because I had pitched a book on Facebook because I was like, social media has just been opened up to the public. This is
Sure.
going to change the entire world. Like governments are going to shift. Everything that we do is going to fundamentally shift on its axis. And the agent from New York told me that Facebook was a fad and so is the internet. He ran away from me 3 years later. Anyway,
Weird. Wonder why.
so I stalked my New York Times best friends, well, in my mind. And I said, okay, I will figure out, I'll teach you social media and I'll build your platform if you teach me how to write. And I
Okay.
joked that my writer's journey was the Kill Bill 2 version. Not a lot of mentoring, more like just making me go up and down a mountain with water and then pushing me over and telling me to do it again.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, Bob didn't call me by my name for 3 years. He
Okay.
published my first 2 books and he never called me Kristen until one day I get this email and he calls me Kristen. I'm like, "What?"
Who is this?
And he says he gave me one of my first keynotes, which was on Whidbey Island up in Seattle.
Love it.
But it worked for me. It isn't for everybody, but I had way too much ego and way too much know-how, and I really kind of needed, you're a lot of us writers, not all of us, we also have crushing self-doubt, but some of us we've been told our whole life, like you make A's on paper, so obviously that 5-page essay naturally translates into a Harry Potter series. I mean, come on.
Obviously, yes.
Obviously, you can barely tell the difference between that essay and the Harry Potter series, and so I hadn't in my defense back then, though, we didn't have stuff like what you're bringing to the world. Like,
Right. We
you
really
just
didn't.
kind of had
Yeah.
to guess how stupid you were and hope you were close.
Right. Right.
And
Or
in
like
the
follow
face of that,
everybody on
like,
Twitter. Yeah.
yeah, and in the face of that, like, I had to have kind of this stupid overconfidence because I committed to it. And that really hit me when I was crying in my Honda Civic, wiping my face with Taco Bell napkins because I hadn't eaten anything that didn't cost 99 cents in the past year.
Right.
And like, I got to make this work. So I took a job as a technical writer, which I'd rather be thrown in traffic than do that, but it pays well. And so I just started blogging because I wasn't very disciplined. I remember thinking, if I could just be one of those people that writes like 500 words a day, like then I'll have made it, or 1,000 words a day. And now I'm like, when I get off on an idea, I actually have a ceiling I have to stop because it'll hurt my hands.
Right.
Blogging, y'all,
Yeah.
blogging. It'll train your speed and your discipline. So I know I'm taking the long way around this, but it's such a crazy journey. So I get my first 2 books through my mentor because New York wasn't going to touch them.
Sure.
And then my 3rd book, I got an amazing agent in New York, Diana Gabaldon's agent, actually. I was actually
Wow.
like, yes, Russ Galen is my agent.
Love
And
it.
he loved Rise of the Machines. And he was like, okay, things are going to happen really quickly. I need you to be ready because contracts are going to be signed. Chickens are going to be sacrificed. Gods are going to be spoken to with chicken bones, whatever. He didn't say that, but I'm saying he did. Anyway, 6 months later, I'm like, dude, what's going on? He's like, you're the tip of the spear. I'm like, but New York's making all their authors use it and they're doing it badly.
Right.
So long story short, I just kept, teaching craft, doing all my forecasting for the industry because, people are wanting to know what's going on. Like we started out with a big 6, Borders and Barnes and Noble. Then we were down to just Barnes and Noble. Then we were down to the Spiffy 5, then the not so Spiffy 4. And so I was mixing business analysis with the publishing industry, with craft, with social media. Because I figured eventually, my passion is fiction. But eventually I figured there's probably going to be a part where people are going to kind of know how to use Facebook.
Right.
And when you go get Rise of the Machines, because it's still relevant, like I don't teach you marketing per se, I teach you neuroscience and why people buy books.
Love it.
So it's kind of an opposite approach to it. Like instead of the science of sales, it's the science of why people buy.
Yep.
So that's why it's still relevant even today. But if you go look it up, sorry for pitching my book, but
No, it's all
10
good.
years old.
That's why you're here.
But it's on the cover, yes, I had few goals in life. One was to be a published author, and the second was to be a cyborg. It is me on the cover. I'm not telling you which half. So
Nice.
like,
Nice.
and I called it Rise of the Machines. And the reason is because nowadays I would get slayed over a cover like that. But I kid you guys not, back in 2012, if I mentioned email to writers, they were like throwing holy water at me. The power of voice compels you.
Yes.
Kathy behind me, Satan. They wouldn't use email, let alone social media. They're like, I have to write books and do social media. I'm like, well, yeah, it's kind of better than that 96% failure rate, but you do you, boo. And so I deliberately put kind of a fiction looking cover on it because I wanted it to look misshelved.
Okay.
Yeah, I was totally gaming you guys. Well, because I knew I was going to be up against all these other books that were like marketing for writers,
Right.
business for writers. It's like, might as well call it How to Turn a Writer into a Cutter in 30 seconds or less. So I thought, we'll have this fun cover, really fun book with a lot of humor in it. I did all the dumb stuff, so you don't have to. That wouldn't fit on the cover as a title.
But it's inside somewhere.
And then I lived my dream and I wrote my first novel, The Devil's Dance. And I've done ghostwriting for celebrities since then. That's why I can say, like, I've written all these books. I can't necessarily tell you which ones. So I've gotten paid to write ghostwrite for celebrities. I was a feature writer for a really fancy magazine that only went like to the top CEOs in the world.
Wow.
So basically, that's why I was saying at the conference that we're actually the oldest profession.
Yeah, right. Right.
We're like, oh, you have a job and it pays. I'm so there. I have a few dreams left. I want to write fortune cookies.
Nice.
Because I'm like, dang it, stop giving me lecture cookies and statement cookies. I want a freaking fortune cookie. I want you to speak life, or at least make them funny. Like, don't look behind you, whatever.
That'd be hilarious.
If I were you, I wouldn't drive home.
You need to make your own line of fortune cookies now, Kristen.
Or
What are
man,
you
I've looked at lipsticks and nail polish and wine.
Yeah.
Like, I buy lipsticks that I'm just like, I don't even really like the color, but I love the name of it.
Right.
Asphyxia, I'm so in.
Right. When I was
Can
in
you tell?
graphic design school, I thought the same thing where it was like I wanted things to look different. And I created a wine bottle that was like screaming banshee wine, like because we had to create a wine bottle. And it's like, I'm
I'm
not
still
gonna be doing
there.
these boring ones. So I had like a screaming chick on the thing, and it was called Screaming Banshee Wine.
Yeah, you see, put me in for a case right there.
Right.
So I think that's kind of what makes, I don't know if it makes me different or unique, or unique is just a special word for special. Because
Enneagram 8, is
I've
it?
kind of covered the gambit, and I really tried really hard over the years to at least give you guys a sense of humor. You know, that I don't always blog where I'm up funny Kristen. Like a couple a couple of my blogs are like, is she, I would mainline cookie dough, but it keeps getting stuck in the needle. You know, that I try to be real and go, you know, especially if you're in this for the long haul, it can't just always be that. That's
Yeah,
unrealistic. And if you expect that, you're not going to last. You're going
absolutely.
to have a sense of humor. I mean, I finally had my dream of my first novel being published. This is after years of teaching you guys how to do it. And the publisher, and I know it was an accident, but a lot, you know, it was my ego writing on this, and I'm telling everybody about it, my grandparents, everybody that said I couldn't do it. They formatted and released the unedited version.
Oh no.
Because I'm throwing a launch party, and I go and I buy my own book, and I open it up, and I'm like, that's not how my book opens. That's not how my book opens. That's not how my book opens.
Oh no. What the?
But you know what? Because of the way I teach to build platforms, I had the most, it was horrible, but I had the most amazing experience because the people who follow me, for whatever reason, other than maybe they feel sorry for me, they genuinely love me. And I was bombarded with emails from writers going, I will take off work and I will help you edit this.
Oh my
Or
goodness. That's
people who were
amazing.
professional editors who were like, Kristen, I don't care. I can get it done in 72 hours if I don't sleep and I don't eat and I don't pee. And I'm like, I so love you. And sure, except for you don't have to do that because it is edited. It's just some poor little intern got the wrong one.
Yeah, right?
So, but it was so
Oh,
fantastic that because people cared about me as a person from knowing me through my platform, I could have just as easily gotten buried in 1-star reviews. But because I had
absolutely.
that relationship there, it was a totally different outcome. Now, it'd be awesome if that's always the outcome. Not that I plan on publishing any more typo-ridden novels, but I do remember I got my first bad review, and he was very thoughtful, you know, about what he thought about the story. And then he's like, but I had to just, I think he gave me 1 or 2 stars. He's like, the it's so sad because this is a good book, but the typos and the grammar errors are just terrible, which is
Yeah.
weird because I'm a clean writer. And I know you're never supposed to talk back, but I replied to him and I said, you know what? Thank you. This is my very first review on a fiction, and I teach fiction. And I said, but you gave it such a thoughtful analysis. And if I had to have a first bad review, I am really glad that it was yours. And just for the record, this was not the final draft. So if you will go reload it, you will actually see that I do know how to spell. And he went back and adjusted the stars, but it was just really sweet that, you know, I think that's what people miss on the social media, that if you're constantly buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, buy one, get one
Yeah,
free, buy, you miss out on that platform that's going to be with you years later. And that
absolutely.
when
That
things
relationship.
happen, like you found out over the conference. I mean, I got visited by the 19th century for my birthday. I got whooping cough. I went to
Right.
visit a friend in the hospital, and I always blog. And I didn't blog for like 8 weeks. I was afraid to actually go back to my own people because I was so embarrassed. I'm like,
Wow.
everybody's gonna think I'm a flake. And so I wrote this post about rejection and kind of how, you know, here I am over 20 years in, and we even have our moments that we're like, I'm a fraud. You know, I went to the conference with you. I'm reading everybody's bios. I'm like, I suck. Why do they even have? This must be pity that they're showing on me. And then I get there and like half y'all are like, oh my god, I've been following your blog since I was a new writer. I'm like,
Oh, thank God.
awesome.
Right? Right?
So I
How
don't even know
amazing.
if I answered the question there just because you're asking for a 20-year
Right?
history. And I was
Yeah.
so burned out when I went to the conference because I was like, well, what does the next leg of this adventure look like? Because I had really built up the speaking. I got to keynote in friggin' New Zealand.
That's amazing.
I mean, I want to go back to my fifth grade teacher who nailed me for talks too much and doesn't use time wisely and go, uh-huh, I got paid to go to New Zealand to talk and not use time wisely, to teach other people how to not use time wisely.
Well, I think
And
that's
then
really
COVID hit, and like
important.
all the speaking went poof. And then I did ghostwriting, and I'm like, "Ugh, that's really a lot of work. It's a lot of pay, but it's a lot of work, a lot of
Yep.
ego to manage." And so I was really kind of in this, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. When I went to the conference.
I love it.
And you guys, I mean, because this profession, I have words, it really is, especially these days, about reinvention.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, for those who listen to this blog, I'm sure you've probably said it before, but when I first started talking about the changes in publishing, I'm like, look, guys, traditional publishing, the last time it changed was when the biggest thing in New York news was a fishmonger got hit by the beer wagon. Like, they're using the same model they've used for 115 years.
Yeah.
And even though, and God bless you, traditional publishers out there, because I'm kind of ripping on you right now. But, instead of reading my blog and listening to me, no, I felt like they were shaking the snow globe of, oh, the good old days and paper books, and people are always going to want to browse a bookstore. No, no,
Yeah. No, that's not true.
maybe. No, but some people will. But all five of them, you want to sell to the others. And, so, ever since they've kind of gotten with the times a little bit, like this, you're just going to have to keep learning how to pivot, wear knee braces.
Heck yes. Yep.
Because you're going to reinvent as a podcaster or a vlogger or a blog. You just have to
Speaker.
do
Yep.
speaker. Well, I want to go back to speaking. They got to open up the venues again.
Right. Yeah.
But, even then, had my eggs kind of all in one basket.
Sure. Sure.
Which, that was for family reasons. There was only so much I could do, but which for your people out there, that is also okay too. Your
Yes,
life is not
absolutely.
always going to be the same as a writer. You're going to
Yeah.
have children and sickness and people who die and people you're taking care of. And you're going to have great times that you have free time. You're going to be screwing off on Twitter instead of doing what you're supposed to. But,
Yep. Yep.
it's like this great big roller coaster that never ends.
Right. It really doesn't. It just keeps going, and it does so many weird twists and turns. Like, I never anticipated ever becoming a writer, coach, someone who does podcasting or any of those things. But at the same time, it's like looking back at things, I'm now going, I can see why I ended up here, but I never would have thought of it. And all of them still incorporate into who I've become, and I wouldn't change any of it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love it. Yeah. It's so crazy.
And there's so many things, like, you have to try stuff to know if you're gonna like it or not. Like, I would at
Yep.
least say that, like, try it. I do have a best friend, and unfortunately fortunately she's a kidney transplant, and thank God she's alive. But we had the funniest podcast for a while. It was Bad Friends Forever, and it was a horror comedy podcast. But her health had just become so unpredictable. And it's just one of the things that I was glad I did it, because I learned how to script it at least. I don't know how to do the tech yet. I'm trying to sucker someone into doing that with me.
Love it.
But, with her, I have to be someone that has to be on a schedule, because if I
Mhm.
see something shiny, then you're going to lose me.
Sure.
But, she must have griped at me for a year. And I was like, no, I give enough stuff away for free. I was very bitter at one point. I was fighting the exposure dollar stuff,
Sure. Yeah.
because I was one of the first people that came out and I was like, you've got to stop paying writers in exposure. If you do not give us actual money, we're going to have to
Yeah.
go get a day job, and then you're going to get books written by AI, and you deserve every bit of it.
I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
And I didn't realize it was going to be so controversial.
And that's so silly when you think about it. Why is paying people what they're worth controversial?
Because people believe, honestly, what we do is easy. Of course,
Mm.
these are ironically the same people that paid us $150 to write that 3-page paper because writing was so hard.
Right.
But yeah, And there was a lot of there were a lot of corporations that were really taking advantage. You're younger than me, but particularly the older generations, that we learned you got exposure because it led to paying jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
because we didn't understand that the paradigm had fundamentally shifted, they were using that against us. And not only were they making hundreds of millions of dollars off of an unpaid workforce, but then they were doing stuff like, well, you can post on your site and you don't even need to change the content, and you can post on our site. But
Right.
for those of you out there who may not understand social media, how SEO works is the bigger content shark wins. So whichever
Right.
site is producing way more content, that's who's going to get the attention. So not only were they not paying us, not only was it not leading to any work, but then they were cannibalizing our site and our brand at the same time.
Right. Right.
And I
Yeah.
went on about a year and a half. I went on the warpath with some really big brands because I was like, and my friend, she's like, Lamb. She never calls me Chris. She's like, Lamb. She's like, is this the hill you want to die on? I'm like, yes, because at
As
least
a matter of
people
fact,
will
it
get
is.
paid.
I agree with you, because like even indie authors, like when I first started in 2010, it was like everybody wanted to just pay like, or have like all the free content out there to get people to like just get on their list, or if they had a list, because like you said,
Yep.
there were not a bunch of authors who were into that, or 99 cents was their like their diehard thing, and no one was earning money being an author with 99-cent books. And it was like so many of us just had this mentality that we can't earn from this, but yet we want to earn from this, and we're trying to like figure out how all this comes
Well, I mean,
together. It
we
was
were
so weird.
trying to invent something that had never existed before.
Yeah.
I mean, if you
Yeah.
think about everything you and I have been through, it isn't like we had parallel markets that we could look historically and go, we could, it's been a
Yep.
lot of noodle throwing,
Yep.
throw noodles
Yep.
against the wall, see what works. And even then, it isn't probably going to work all that long. And I
For
think I
sure.
even said it in the Rise of the Machines. I'm like, if you've got some marketing guru out there saying, you know, and I don't mean to talk shade on anyone, but just a caveat emptor, follow my method to sell 1 million books. Well, that method, I hate to tell you, it's probably already out of date.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I see a lot of stuff out there like that. And maybe they do. I mean, I don't know, but I would still be like, hey, buyer beware with, tossing money at someone because I just want to write. I don't want to do this other stuff. I'm like, well, you know what? I just want to lay around and play video games. But apparently my
That
bills
doesn't sell
expect
the
to be
books.
paid, and my kid and my husband expect to be fed, and it's really hampering my gaming. you
Right.
know, like,
Like,
have to do
go figure.
taxes. Oh, this is
Really?
so fun until the
Again?
IRS had to come take the fun out of everything.
Right.
And even then, like, don't get me wrong, I wanted to for a moment I had it. I mean, I had Diana Gabaldon's agent. Did I mention that? James Rollins was a friend, and so I
So
had James
cool.
Rollins, love you, Jim, his agent. So for a moment I had the glory of like, yes, I am a New York represented author, and that
Nice.
55 cents would have not gotten me coffee anymore because that's even outdated. But, just, you know, we just about think that we've cracked it, and then it changes or someone takes advantage of it. Do you remember? Okay, I remember the free book thing. I remember the 99-cent book thing. Do
Mm-hmm.
you remember you need to go get a pen name that's close to like instead of Anne Rice, I'd be like ANNE Rice. Like they were basically creating bad knockoffs,
Yep.
and they were
Yep.
writing in the same genre and had very similar looking covers. And I
Yep.
actually met one of these people, and he's like, Kristen, you could totally change your name. And I was like, I don't want to get sued. And if I can't make it on my own with my own writing, no. And it was hard. I mean, I'm human. I really am. And, when you're seeing writers that were buying sports cars cash with 1 month royalty, you're like, oh man, it sucks having morals.
Right. Or like
But
wanting
later
to do
on,
things that are creative. I think sometimes some of us we are in it because we're really honestly about the writing and not so much about the money at first. And so it's hard to marry those two things up where it's like, I have these cool creative ideas and I'm not going to sell myself out for it just to make the money, you know?
yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I think where we are now, the old paradigm didn't attract the get rich quick people
Yeah.
because there was just no getting rich quick in it. I mean, it was stupid. You might as well go
Yeah.
pan for gold. You probably had a better chance. Whereas in this new market, especially when you had what was his name? Crap, I wrote about it in one of my books. John, he's the one how I sold 1 million books in 6 months or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, see, we've even forgotten about him. But
Yeah,
all these things started coming out of how
sure.
I made $1 million selling ebooks. So you started attracting a very different type of person into our industry that had never been there before.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep.
I mean, I don't think it had been. I mean, because even back in the heyday when you could make money with articles and things like that, you still had to get through gatekeepers
Yep.
and, layers of security.
Absolutely. Yep. And then you had like that whole boom with Amanda Hawking and her
Yep.
like rapid releasing scheme, not scheme, but the rapid releasing schedule that she did. And then that kind of transitioned into like the 20 books vibe where
Hmm.
Michael Anderle and Craig Martell talked about that and going as fast as possible. And people took
And
that
then
to
there
the
was the
next
box
level.
set thing.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so I could almost do like this timeline where you just don't have years, you just have whatever the thing was that was in style at the time.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I don't know if it's ever going to level out. I guess where I see things going more now is going to be the audio.
Sure. Audio and
And it's
in
just,
direct sales, I think they're really kind of become the big thing when it comes to where authors are kind of putting their like creative backing, I guess. You know what I
I'm
mean?
waiting
Where
for us to become an MLM.
oh,
That's
okay.
the only thing we haven't done yet. Like we have like one guru personality and we sell like vitamins and writing workshops. And you just have
Nice.
to bring people in that want to be a writer.
And then you get paid for underneath those people. That'd be
Yeah, yeah,
great.
you get paid for the new writers you bring in that you convince you're going to make a New York Times bestseller.
Oh
If
gosh.
someone runs with this, we know where it came from.
Right. And it's probably going to come from Kristen's blog.
Yeah,
Everybody sign up. It's starting tomorrow.
yeah, it's going to be writing lessons and caffeine supplements.
Nice. Nice. And then for after you're done, we'll give you like free cases of Writer's Tears whiskey. It'll be great.
No, your Banshee wine.
Yeah, that one.
It's just
Oh,
got a
it'd be
picture of
funny.
an editor with a red pen on it.
Yes, that'd be scary enough. Oh, geez. I love it.
So I don't even know if I answered the question.
You have in a very roundabout way, but it's wonderful because
I'm
that's what
from
I love
Texas.
about
We take
you.
the country route.
Yeah, that's what I love about you. I knew, like, I wrote down and came up with 6 different questions. I think I was telling you that before we started, and I was like, this is gonna go where it's gonna go because I already know that. So it's like I have
Yeah.
questions just in case we need them, and if not, then that's totally cool too. I'm fine with it. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm kind of like herding chickens, but I mean, I think most writers are. I don't know. We kind of break down into personality types. It'd be fun to
oh
do
for
like just
sure.
a Myers-Briggs writer's personality type.
I love it. I love it. No,
Because you can look at people and go, they know how to use Excel.
you are an Enneagram 8, right? Is that the Challenger? Is that the one?
I don't know because I don't know if
Okay.
I'm a 2 or an 8 because she said I could be a
Okay.
2, which is the helper, and I just become a tyrant when I don't get my way, or I'm just a tyrant, which probably fits.
That's okay.
'Cause I am a
I could see
disruptor. Like,
both.
I remember
Yeah.
in the beginning, they would tell me, "You can't do that." I'm like, "Why?" "Yeah, I
Yeah.
can." "You
Yeah.
can't nobody's gonna want that." I'm like, "Okay, well, let's try and ask them if they want it or not."
Yeah.
And I've been
100%.
the one kind of known for blogging about the stuff that everybody's seeing, and they're afraid to say anything about it,
Yep.
like
Yeah.
exposure
See, to
dollars.
me, I would say that you probably are more of the Enneagram 8 then, because you like to start there, even though you're helping, even though that's part of your core personality, you like to help as well, but you like to
Yeah.
do it in a way that makes them think. And I think that's awesome. We need more of that because there's so many people that just kind of go along with things and they don't understand why it's not working for them.
Well, I remember speaking in New York, and again, I never will speak badly about anybody because they just may not know. They may be at a different process. They may have done something that's worked for a long time, and they're kind of in their own bubble, and they're not seeing it isn't working. Because I went and spoke early on at Thriller Fest in 2012, and they
Awesome.
paired me with a very prestigious marketer who did. I mean, this woman's amazing. She's doing all the marketing for people who are my heroes, right?
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
they probably have an invisible airplane and a fortress somewhere. So no shade on her. But when I said something about blogging, she looked at me like I had just suddenly started speaking in tongues. I'm like, and she's like, "Do you mean like Julia and I'm like, no, like the blog us. Like this is a way that, people get to know you and your voice because trust me, I write funny stuff, rending stuff, and I write some really dark stuff. Troy and I are coming out with that anthology. I came up with the title. It's called What the Hell Did I Just Read?
I love it. I love
because
it.
it's horror. Because I'll
Okay.
read this stuff to my mom and she's like, I love it, but God, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, I was seeing all these possibilities for the blog, and I had to team teach with her because I'm the newbie, and I'm trying to be so polite because she's teaching social media, and she's like, and you can tweet as your characters. I'm like, yeah, because getting catfished, everybody loves that. Why would I want to talk to people from a book I don't know? And then I find out then I'm just pissed. And
Yeah.
then I started trying to bring up blogging, and she's like, well, I recommend that you do book reviews because, yeah, reading it and analyzing a book, you can just do that in like an hour. And then if you're a decent book reviewer, you've just made every writer hate you. So nothing like being in the trenches with people who want to set you on fire. And then she's like, and you can do interviews with your characters. And I'm sitting there going, I'm a pre-published writer. I don't have a book out yet because this is 2012. This is really before indie was accepted. I don't
Right.
have a book out yet. And I'm going to convince people to come to my blog where I interview people out of my head about a story that's not even finished yet.
How'd that go for
And
you?
I'm sitting there going, did you think this through?
I'm like, how did that work for you? Yeah.
But at the same time, if you look at where she was coming from, she was coming over from all traditional marketing
Yep.
where gimmicky stuff like that actually did well.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone
That was a different
cared who
era
you
too,
were.
though. Like, but pre-social, like where we really hardcore went into social, we didn't like think like we do now, where it's like, I can't even imagine. I know there are probably people who do really well with that sort of thing, but I can't even
I've
imagine
never
doing
seen it.
something like that. Right?
Well, I mean, yeah, but they would be people that we would know their work. I mean, that was kind of my argument
Sure.
is like anybody who's going to be drawn to the blog knows the books and knows the work. They've already been sold. So
Yep.
why are you trying to resell someone who's already been a sale?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we just had different philosophies. I don't like the idea of target your audience because I just kind of envision like a red dot sight on me somewhere. There's a lot
Nice.
of like military target your audience. I'm like,
Right.
that feels kind of awkward. And because and it's very hippy dippy, which is so not me because I'm so Texan. But I'm just like, no, you want to identify your people and then you
Yeah.
go talk to them. Like, how
Yeah.
did we become best friends when we were kids? You like Barbies? I like Barbies. We're best friends.
Right.
You have a
It's
bike? I have a
great.
bike. We're best friends. And I'm like, if you write fantasy novels, why are you blogging self-help?
Yeah.
Or why are you blogging about writing? Because no reader gives a crap about writing unless we royally screw it up.
Yep.
They don't
Yep.
care about 3-act structure unless we botched it.
Yep. Yep.
So I'm like, if you write, fantasy, do what fantasy geeks do. We argue about Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Yeah. Or talk about
It's
other like fantasy novels you've read, or talk about fantasy shows you've watched recently, or
books, video
yeah.
games, Dungeons and Dragons. There's
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff that geeks have, and we actually cross-pollinate. Because if we argue about Game of Thrones, we're probably going to argue about Star Wars and Star Trek too.
Right.
Throw in The Hobbit. I mean, Renaissance festivals.
Heck yes. I love those.
And that's why in the book I have a thing that I call your word cloud, which I think someone used a word cloud in their presentation. Mine's different. It's an ingredient label. If you could put an ingredient label on the back of yourself and think of everything that you accounts for who you are, then if you do that with as many words as you can think of, I said, now you hold that up and you've got absolutely the most accurate portrait and profile of your reader.
I love
Because
that.
if I have a word cloud, which is mine, which is like love Xbox gaming, love first person shooters, martial arts, shooting targets, love zombie flicks, love horror. Do you really think I'm writing inspirational women's fiction?
Yeah, probably not. No.
So
No.
those aren't my people. But if
Yep.
if I have on my word cloud, and I'm not making fun of anybody, it's just not me. But if I have, volunteer work, Doctors Without Borders, Architectural Digest, I'm a member of the museum club. I volunteer as a docent at the museum. My favorite books are all in the classics. I only listen to classical music. I have those people as family members.
Mm-hmm.
That's a totally different audience. And
Yep.
if that's what your word cloud looks like, that's who you're looking for.
For sure.
And
Absolutely.
then blogging and all that becomes super easy because then you're just having a discussion about your favorite crap.
I love that. When you've been blogging for so long, I mean, like, I think I went back to look at it when I was getting my questions ready, and it was like, you started in 2009, right? Does that sound right?
Technically 2007.
Really? Holy
Yeah,
cow.
that one
Was
I
it in
think
a different
started in
location?
2008.
Okay.
But what happened was, see, we remember I told you we were inventing things as we go along.
Yep.
Now, back then, it did make sense, all right? Because they said to get the free WordPress, which when it was a minimum of $5,000 to get a website, and then if you
Yep.
wanted anything changed, you had to wait for your web designer to get out of rehab and get on their list
Yes.
to pay to get it changed.
Or
So
your
the free
brother.
one made so much sense. And when I was sold it originally, they said, well, you can transition to the paid one easily,
And that was a pain in the butt.
which you
Oh.
can if you don't blog.
See, for me,
Because I originally had almost 100,000 subscribers.
Holy cow. See, for me, I had the same thing. I went through the same experience where I started with the free version of WordPress.com, and I ended up having to like export the whole thing and re-upload it into WordPress.org later on.
Yep.
And that was a pain in the butt.
And I got all my comments and I had all my content.
Yep.
But I easily, at first, oh my God, at first I lost, I think almost down to, I only had 12,000 subscribers, down from like 90,000.
Wow.
And
that's crazy.
I mean, I like to think that they were bots, but I mean, I'm triple that now. But, I do know that the people that I have as followers now, I mean, these are the people that when I was sick, I was getting text messages. They're like, where are you? My inbox is empty. I haven't gotten a blog from you. Are you alive?
Right.
So, and those are really kind of the people that I encourage. I mean, not that the other marketing stuff isn't great and I don't want to learn how to do some of it, but Kevin Kelly basically said, all you need is 1,000 hardcore fans. These are the people that are going to buy everything. They're going to retweet your stuff. They're going to tell friends and family about it. They're going to stop people in bookstores and recommend your stuff. All you need is 1,000 of those people to make a decent living as a creative professional. 1,000's doable.
Yeah, for sure.
1,000,
is that what started you with the blogging aspect of it? Like, is that what kind of your core basis was, or what inspired you to start the blog then?
To start the blog was I was a flake with absolutely no self-discipline.
So you're just trying to get your routine in?
Yeah, it was sitting butt in chair and writing and training out my perfectionism. Because if you look at a lot of the really prolific authors of the 20th and into the 21st century, a lot of them started out as journalists.
Oh, sure.
Michael Connelly was a crime writer.
Okay.
For the LA Times. And, he couldn't wait until the muses visited to, talk about the triple homicide, so I remember starting the blog, with a baby hanging off me and cats on me, and I will get now I have been, I know you may find this shocking. I tend to go to extremes.
That is so weird. I can't see it.
I know. So I was so afraid of just being this like lazy bum, which I was. I was totally like, I'm not in the mood. The muse hasn't, that nonsense.
Yeah.
Well, then I just became like this like blog Nazi. Like, you will write a blog. We will send you to the Western Front or the Eastern Front, whichever one is worse right now. But so I remember one blog in particular, I suddenly started having family members die. And I don't mean to shock anyone. I was very blessed with a very large family from Texas. I grew up with all my great aunts and uncles, right? Okay. So they were a part of my life, but they all hit like their 80s and 90s at the same time.
Sure.
So it wasn't anything like traumatic, as in we were losing people far before their time. Though we were thinking my Aunt Iris would see them, at least 100. She was close. But I was up with her. She was getting, I felt like, because I have an ego, that she wanted to talk to me before she passed on. And I was up till 2:00 in the morning talking to her. And she had wanted to, that's one of my few regrets, is she had always wanted to see my fiction in print, which is weird because she was the docent at the museum that always read biographies and fiction was nonsense. And I'm like, but I have all these nonfiction. She's like, yeah, but I wanted to see your fiction. Really? Anyway, she passes away. I get up early the next day because I must blog on that day. I wrote a blog about editing and I misspelled in the freaking header.
Can you say iconic?
And then all of a sudden you get the comments and I'm like, I'm trying here.
Like, okay, here's what's happening in my life right now.
So after that, I was like, okay, maybe you should like chill out. You don't have to exactly do it on that day. But I had good reason to be concerned, understanding myself the way that I used to be. Because I was that person that if I took a day off, it was very dangerous that I would get derailed.
Got it.
So I
Yep.
did at least have enough self-awareness to understand how dangerous me giving myself permission would be. But then it's gotten to the point it's just pathological. So we've established I can take a little time off and I'm fine. But I really was one of those people that just thought you just, went all out and you went in a book and the first draft, of course, is the best draft.
Obviously.
Why
Duh.
would anyone want to get rid of all that creative genius, right?
Yep.
But so the long answer to your question is I think I started in funny story on that. So 2000, this one 2008, and when I
Okay.
did that transition,
Yep.
it bumped off what the start date was. But I talked about this in Are You There blog, It's Me Writer, and that I didn't know the difference between the Google based blogs and WordPress. What's the Google based ones?
Oh, geez.
I know I never read them because to give a comment on them, I have to have like a blood sample and letters from 3 relatives and a horoscope, and I'm like, I am not that motivated to
I'm
leave a
trying to remember
comment.
what it is too, because like, do people?
Blogger,
Oh, yeah, that's
Blogger.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So Blogger and WordPress were initially the big competitors. So I put a blog
Yep.
on both of them. All
Yep.
right, because I wanted to look at functionality. So you're gonna get a kick out of this. So Blogger I liked better because it had all these really cool, pretty backgrounds and fonts and all this, right? So I'm
Yep.
kind of not really paying attention to WordPress, pinning that one. So I'm like, so I put up my blog and then I changed the background. I go look at it and I change it and I go look at it. And then I look and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't even told anyone I have a blog and I have 42 people who have read this. So then you already know where it's going. So I go change the font and I'm like, wait, 43 people, 44. I was all excited and I was the only one looking at my blog. It's like, this blog is so pretty. I'll name it Tiffany. I'm gonna change the color.
And look at all those numbers that keep going up. That's
Oh my
fantastic.
gosh, those numbers are slamming. I haven't even told anyone. So now WordPress, I put up my first post on WordPress. Bing, instant comment. I'm like, heck yeah. It was this foreign guy, a Kismet.
Okay. Yep. I know.
I thought it had to be foreign. I'd never heard it before.
Yep. Yep.
And he was congratulating me on my blog. And so I wrote back and he never wrote back, which was like totally rude. And imagine my horror when I found out that that was the spam filtering feature. I started trying to talk to him. I'm like, a Kismet, what is that, like foreign?
Of course it is. I'm not answering you though, however. Oh, gosh.
And then I blogged to the cheap Xanax and Louis Vuitton bags.com and collegegirlsforyou.com for the next few years. And then I would get these great comments. Like, I know that they're porn bots, but I'm like, if I delete them, I won't have any comments.
So I gotta leave them there. I love it.
I so like your blog. You make many good poinsettias. Like, I know it's a bot, but and then I blogged long enough to do this discipline thing that I was like, screw it. Because I was like trying to be like all serious, which if you've met me is like funny in itself.
Right? Why would you want to be serious? Like what?
Well, because when you go to a writing conference and you meet all the people from like Penguin and all that, you're like, oh yeah, I gotta like wear pants and say ma'am. And
yeah, you might want to wear pants or at least a skirt or something anyway, but hey, whatever.
Were you around in the early days with the agents when they came down off Mount Olympus to talk to us mere mortals?
Yeah, a little bit. Like my first writers conference, I went to Moonlight Magnolias as a science fiction author. Mystery. Yeah, romance actually down in Georgia.
Mystery.
No, it's romance, and I was like the only science fiction author because at the time I was writing science fiction fantasy.
So apparently you're as bright as I am. I'm like mystery. You're like no romance, even though I was writing science fiction.
But I knew that. Like my critique partners at the time, so this was 2011 when I was down there. They were both romance writers, and so I was like following along with them. And they're like, "It's fine. Just come down here and check out what this conference is about." So talked to all the agents, did all the querying thing down there, and realized at that time, because that was during that transition of indie versus like trad, like what's going to go on. I was finally like, I'm just going to go indie because I'm a control freak. I'm a Virgo. I want to keep the control, and I'm fine learning stuff. I've been in the publishing industry for a long time anyway. Yeah. So that was.
See, you were so much more assured than I was, and I'm an Aries, so it's like, I mean, I conquer that hill. Crap, wrong hill. Never mind. It's really the one that I wanted.
You're an instigator, is what you are. I see.
Oh
you.
yeah, yeah, man.
Oh
You
yeah.
give me an anthill, I'll kick that sucker right over.
Love it.
That's why, like, every time they're like, and then there's the 8, and they're always like the examples they give. I'm like, okay, suck it. I am Voldemort, but get over it. No Voldemort. There's no Harry Potter.
Nice. I love it.
You know, without Voldemort, Harry Potter's just a weird dude living in a closet. Okay.
And he wouldn't have been pushed to do anything because he would have been like happy in his like little world. Remember, he's an Enneagram 9 like I am.
Exactly.
So he needed Voldemort to push him out of his comfort zone. Totally
Kristen
fine.
compares herself to Voldemort. I don't know. On Facebook, it has like what your profession is, and I think I have like evil overlord.
Nice. I love it.
I do it on LinkedIn too, just to piss them off.
In LinkedIn, they're also
they're always so serious.
Yeah, they're so professional. I actually question sometimes, like when I'm putting social out there, I'm like, should this post be on there? Because I pretty much use the word ass. Like, would they care? You know?
Oh, I'll post stuff like stuff that I'm like, I know this doesn't belong on here, but I'll put it on there. I'll be like, okay, guys, we're setting the timer for how long it takes for someone to lecture me that this belongs on Facebook.
Nice.
Because I guess business people never like to laugh. Like,
apparently,
come on.
right?
That's the only stuff that it's mostly the only stuff I post.
I love it.
But I told somebody one time, he got really snotty with me, and I was like, okay, so you're saying writing isn't a profession? Comedy isn't a profession? Art isn't a profession? Like, just because I'm posting something funny that, you do realize movies are a profession.
Right.
Writing is a profession. Comedy is a profession. Just because my profession doesn't always involve spreadsheets, it probably should, but
but who likes having to do that? I mean,
oh yeah, my friend Kate, I put something in Excel. I was so excited, and she was like, Lamb, did you put down the salt circle first? I'm like, no. She's like, okay, if California breaks off, we know it's on you.
Yes, right. There's going to be a seance. There's going to be like some sort of like holy water that needs to be found.
I know. I don't know what it is. Like every time I use Excel, I got to like relearn it. It just doesn't stay.
But I can't say it's my favorite thing in the world either. It's
That's why you make friends with people who love that crap. Okay.
Yes.
That's why.
Yep.
Guys, my whole thing is we are not alone. Wanna.
Right. I love that. That's your tribe, right?
Because you're going to have some nerdy writer friend who loves Excel. And if you hate Excel, there's probably something they hate doing that because you're the opposite. You love doing. I love coming up with taglines and writing back copy.
Love it.
Yeah, I could do that for days if you put the stuff in a spreadsheet.
You do that part for me, it'll be fine.
Quid pro quo, Clarice. Are the lambs still screaming? Yes, she is. She had to use Excel.
Love it. Oh gosh. Do you think do you think blogs are still relevant these days? Because I know there's so many people that are like, the blog is dead. But
they've been saying that since 2008 when I started.
Right. I feel like
blog has been around pre-Web 2.0. I mean, all a blog is it's what we did during caveman times. We either told stories or we shared information.
Yep.
And I think that people are always going to go to the blog if it's a good blog. And I know people are like, yeah, but there's so many bloggers. And I challenge them with this. I'll say, okay, so say 75% of people say they want to start a blog. Of that, 5% do. How many did you just drop that number by? Of that 5%, how many of them start blogging and keep blogging longer than 6 months? 5%. Of that number, how many have a good blog? 5%. Of that number, how many keep blogging past a year? 2. And so when you get the longevity in it, you really can juke the numbers in your favor. Like one of the things I want to get into is I would like to get a paywall set up for Patreon. And what I would like to do, because I have a decent enough voice, is, and also my blogs are stupid long.
They are very long.
Well, but I put a lot of funny memes in them, and they're
Yes, you
shorter
do.
than the craft book you'd have to read to get this information. I'm like the cliff
Right.
notes of all the craft books.
Right.
But what I thought about doing for like a Patreon kind of as an upgrade is go through and record them. So like if you're doing your dishes or walking or whatever, plotting murder,
Yeah.
you can
Plotting murder.
listen. You
Love
can
it.
listen as opposed to a lot of people are sitting at a screen
Hmm.
all the time. So I think it's always going to be there. I love the blog just because it plays to what a writer's strength should be. Writers write. It's
Yep.
going to make you write leaner, meaner, faster, and cleaner, even if nobody reads it. It's easy to put that content, slap it together, and put it in a book, and there's your loss leader.
That's true too. Yeah, for sure.
It's easy to put it in a different format, whether that's on YouTube or Audible. It's very easy to translate it over into an audio format. It's easy to put a
Yep.
paywall. It is the only form of social media that is going to keep paying dividends your entire career. Because like I'll be on Twitter and like some weird title will go by. And I'm like, that's funny. That sounds like something I thought. And I click and I'm like, oh, I wrote that. Well, because I mean, I got a lot of blogs.
Yes, you
I'm like,
do.
that's so funny. I mean, that sounds like something I did say that. And it teaches you to ship. You don't get so married to things,
Yeah.
that new writers are so terrified to put themselves out there. Well, you know what? Go viral with a blog post when you're not popular, and that'll get you some rhino skin right there.
For sure. Yes.
Hey, I didn't think writing about paying writers was going to be that that contentious, but apparently it was, because I got called the C word a lot of times, and cute was not that word.
And it was also a CU word, funnily enough,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
It wasn't see you later.
Although maybe that would have been nicer. Yeah.
Well, a lot of it has to do with, unfortunately, a lot of writers don't understand how the industry works. Like too many people think that when someone's going to a library and checking out a Stephen King book, that's all free. Well,
Right.
no, we pay taxes so that we have a library, which gives funds for them to negotiate with New York to buy those books from those authors. Those authors have already been paid. So no, I'm not against libraries. And I'm not against people buying books at bookstores. The crux of the blog really was just, avid readers. And I know this is going to sound terrible. It may come back to bite me. Avid readers really are not necessarily who we want as a fan.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. The reason is we're as bad as crack addicts. Like we will sell blood to get the next book, and there's only so
Sure.
much you can write.
Yep.
And we very rarely will stop to write a review because we read all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who we really want, and that's where blogs come in that are awesome, is you want the person who honest to God believes they hate reading and they would never do it unless there was a test at the end or it was required for their job.
Okay.
Because if you convert that person, they will be evangelical, because they will tell everybody far and wide, normally I hate reading, I hate books, but have you read insert Harry Potter, insert Twilight, insert Tuesdays with Morrie, insert 50 Shades of Grey. And there are people out there, and I'm not reader shaming anyone, I'm teasing, even though some writers, a little bit of us dies every time we hear that, but they're reading, and they don't read any other book, but they have the entire collection of 50 Shades on a shelf with their handcuffs and the movies,
Right.
and go them, they're reading. But I've done ministry stuff with prisoners, and their thing that they own is they have all the hard copies of Harry Potter. Now
Okay.
they'll never read another book. They'll read Harry Potter 75 times, but
Fair.
they're evangelical. And I'm like, if you could just get a handful of those, that's when you see the breakouts come.
Oh yeah,
Those
for
are when you
sure.
get your Twilights, your Hunger Games. Those are your runaway dark horses. And it has to do, I mean, it's a shame with reviews, because reviews attract two types of people. People that either love the book so much or like, oh my gosh, it made me lose weight. It made my skin glow. It doubled my money. Or you get the person who hates you, your dog. It generally will attract those two. And so
Sure.
your person who's always buying books is not necessarily the best market, because we have a habit to support.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we're much more likely to go be using those secondary markets where people don't get paid royalties. Whereas new writers are so cute. They're like, is $29.99 a normal price for a book? Yes, it is. Actually, that is a deal. You
Yep,
should get
yep.
5.
100%. And then share more with friends. Let's
And
go.
yeah, get that for your friends and tell them to get the next one.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
And when people ask why that is, and if I'm going over time, I apologize. But when I teach, marketing and such to writers, I say we have such a strange product. All right. Because there's 2 types of goods when you're doing any kind of sales. There's a low consideration purchase, there's a high consideration purchase.
Yep.
Low consideration purchase is toilet paper. Who's not buying this?
Right.
And yet we see ads for it, we see coupons for it.
Mhm.
No one is advertising Sherman in hopes to convert people into using toilet paper. Okay.
Right. Right. Just their brand of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas a high intensive, a high consideration product is like a Corvette. Nobody gets a Corvette for practical purposes.
Right.
Or my my MacBook Pro. Yes, it doesn't get viruses, but look how cute and adorable and intellectual I like sitting at Starbucks. Right? It's emotionally driven.
Sure.
So for your avid reader who knows they're going to consume books, book ads work because all you're doing is convincing them of what they were going to buy anyway.
Yep. Yep.
Whereas the people who are not your voracious read all the time, which is like 93% of the population, they never see those ads because they believe that is an activity they do not enjoy, let alone want to spend money on it.
Yep.
So books become kind of this weird middle ground thing where, low intensive generally doesn't cost a lot of money, like a tube of toothpaste. You buy it, you don't like the taste, you throw it away, unless you're my mother, and then you use the whole thing and complain the entire time, or me. And then you have the other side, which is, if I'm going to go get a jet ski or I'm going to go to Europe, I'm going to put a lot of money on this. So I start doing what my friends and family and what I'm seeing. I mean, I wasn't immune. I kept hearing
Sure.
enough about Twilight that finally it's like, okay, fine. YA
Yep.
glittery vampires. Let me try it.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
was like, okay, I
Same.
can see why people would like the book. I mean, I'm not immune to peer pressure.
Yeah.
But how many times did people hear Harry Potter or Twilight or Hunger Games or Wool or The Martian before they finally were like, the only one I don't see it on, and sorry for anybody that hates on me out there, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
I saw
And
a
it
little
is
bit
the
about that
only
though.
book I've ever heard fans say the first 120 pages or so are really rough. But once you get past that, I'm like, who gives anything 120 pages? I've
Right.
tried it on audio. I've tried the movie. It just didn't stick, but I did try. And the gentleman who is no longer with us made a lot of money as his family did.
Yeah.
But if you can start thinking in terms of I'm putting out all this money in ads, well, who are you really advertising towards? You're advertising to people like us who mainline books,
Yep.
which is great. But where the blog kind of comes in is these are kind of your people that they need to kill some time on a lunch break. And so they
Yep.
get familiar with your writing on a blog or a podcast or whatever. And then when you come out with a book, they feel vested. They're like, oh, I've known her since forever.
Right.
And
Yeah.
those are going to be people who, by and large, will be much more passionate because they're not the people who are just eating through book after book. I mean, I get hit by an ice cream truck and Audible's going under. Like if you see suddenly Audible stocks tank, you need to call and check for proof of life for
Nice.
me. Because they're losing money on that, the one where you get all the stuff you want to listen to for free. Though they're
Right.
not, because I will discover authors through that and then just eat through the rest of their list. But you know, so I mean it's a lot of work, but it's a fun job. I don't think most of us would. It's kind of weird to say that we wouldn't change jobs because literally the market makes us change jobs about every 6 to 8 months.
Right. Right. It's not the same job that it was at all when we started at all. No.
And
Even
I
the way that
mean,
the way that we produce it or push it out or publish, how frequently we publish, all of it's changed.
well, and I'm like you in the respect of I'm a control freak as well, because I tried going through smaller publishers and every time I was like, there was not a time I did not get my cover that I didn't cry.
Right.
And I remember when The Devil's Dance came out, I mean, they made me answer all these questions about it. And it's basically Legally Blonde meets Killing Floor. Okay. It's a gritty story about a cartel, but the main character is essentially your fish out of water whose life has just gone completely into the toilet, and she is being blackballed to the point that she has to go home to this Jerry Springer, crazy as a bag of cats family in a trailer park. And she shows back home, and all of a sudden this town, which is where Whataburger went to die, suddenly has all these multi-million-dollar estates and and there's this newfound wealth that's
Okay.
in the town. And so, I came out with this idea. I wanted to write something that I would like to do. And so I got a small publisher. They loved it. And I answer all these questions on this questionnaire, and I get my cover, and I'm like, it looks like she's talking to God about her period. She's in like this lacy top, and she's got the wavy blonde hair, and it's got Death Valley behind her. I'm like, okay, Texas is not Death Valley.
What
And
the
she's
heck?
kind of got this, and I'm like, no,
Like, what are you doing?
no. And so I got my rights back to that one. That's got the kick-ass green cover on it now. But yeah,
Love it.
I'm like you. It's just like, I don't know if I can be pleased. Maybe I can be. Maybe my standards are too stupid. But
I think you have good
just,
standards. You know what you want and you know what you like. You got to stick with that,
well, there's
I
certain
think.
things that like I'm not going
Yeah.
to be so picky on, and then there's other stuff that yes, this is the ride or die stuff. Like your cover is
Yeah.
ride or die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there was nothing on that other cover that would make someone go, oh, out of this whole panel of thumbnails, let me get that one.
Right. Right.
Just yeah.
Oh, too funny. Well,
But
obviously,
yeah, all the
you're.
covers I've gotten have been great because I have a really great designer.
I
He's
love
actually
when that happens.
retired, but I call him and badger him. I'm like, please, I'll pay you extra.
He's like, okay,
Yeah, I
hang
should
on.
make more friends because I could probably save more money.
Right. There's lots of really great creative people out there. There's probably hundreds of people you
There
could like
are, but we
enlist.
have been locked away so long,
I know,
which
right?
is not good
COVID
for
really
us
just
writers anyway.
COVID just really did a number on us. I'll tell you, it's been so nice to get out into these writers conferences again and start talking to people and seeing them face to face and just, oh, it's such a breath of fresh air. And like Idaho, I mean, it was so fantastic. Just that, like, I never thought I would love Boise, like never been there until obviously the conference. It was just so lovely to be in that conference center, to see all of the people that were there,
And
to
every
like
speaker
walk.
was fantastic.
Right.
And even though they
So
had
good.
very different ways of coming at, whatever topic it was, you know, for anyone listening to this, I mean, you don't ever have to completely adopt whole
Oh
hog
yeah.
anything. I mean, I say good writers borrow, great writers steal, and I stole that off someone somewhere. But you take like Candy Havens is amazing, and I was a brand new author. It was my first conference, and she introduced the idea of fast draft, where you wrote your novel in 2 weeks. I'm like, without being on cocaine? Like, this is real?
Like, that's a thing?
And so I was like, obviously I wasn't published, and I wanted to be. So I was like, well, I'll try it, which I found out I could write a book in 2 weeks. I
Wow.
also found out I could not write a book in 2 weeks if I wanted use of my hands.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
had to like change that. But fast drafting, because of my brain, worked well for me because I tend to like to deep dive and go off on tangents,
Okay.
and it makes me finish. So I've learned to just put in, like, if I can't figure out where I'm going, I'll put in all caps, something really amazing happens here.
I love it. Yep.
And then I pick up at the next logical point. And it
Yes.
never fails. Like, the boys in the basement will get to work, and I'm like, oh, I had never thought of that on my own.
Right.
So, that's
I
why,
love that.
people like you and, the bloggers that are out there and the teachers that are out there, like, we can pick and choose, like, oh, this aspect works great. That didn't work well when my kid was little, but now that I'm older, it works great. And you just kind of start creating your own method, which I
Yep.
don't care what it is, as long as you're finishing books.
Yeah.
Because people argue with
Absolutely.
me on my blog. I'm like, man, if you got to wear a tutu and rub yourself in body glitter by moonlight and you're finishing books, I don't care.
Yep.
Just let me know what the body glitter is, so maybe I can try it. DM me.
Because you never know.
Yeah,
Be magical.
like I told you, we're the oldest profession.
Yep. Absolutely. So
But-
I gotta have you explain something that you stopped me in the hall when we got done with the I had a speech for the Aspire for More conversation, and it's super funny because you stopped me in the hall to tell me something, And I actually seriously thought about putting, not putting the way you put it, which I want you to say in a second, but like telling them that kind of concept at the same time. But I knew like this particular speech, I'm trying to inspire them.
You're
So I just kind of
totally
kept
welcome
going
to
with it.
steal it. It's fine.
I love it.
I just always acknowledge the people I steal from, because when I teach plot, a lot of it I stole off Larry Brooks, and I'm like, okay, guys, yes, a lot of this I ripped off Larry Brooks. Go buy his book; it's awesome. It's not all him,
Right.
but yeah. So,
So, but yes,
you
I
will tell
obviously,
the aspiring writer.
yes,
So
tell
I
the
don't
story. I
even
love it.
remember how this hit me, but I think when you blog enough, I think you spend enough time alone that you just quit caring what other people think. Like, you go out in public and when you eat, you look like you just got out of prison because you've been alone so long. You're like, oh, I need to eat with my mouth closed. Yeah. Okay. But you just get to a point where you just don't necessarily care because you're in the zone. And I can't remember where it was, but somebody had something about aspiring writers, and I just went off on it. And so I remember when I went to speak, I love playing this trick on people just because it's funny.
It is. It's hilarious.
So everyone listening to this, you're gonna know ahead of time it's a trick. It's a trap. So,
but it's
but
a
I would
wonderful
keynote.
one.
I'd be like, okay, are there any aspiring writers in the room? Raise your hand. And they're all proud of themselves and they're raising their hand. And I'm like, okay, is everybody, because you paid for a conference, if you're an aspiring writer, raise your hand. And they'd raise their hand. I was like, okay, now I want you to take that hand and I want you to hit yourself with it really, really hard and never call yourself aspiring again. And like, you just dropped like a freaking grand to come to a conference. You're not aspiring.
Yeah.
Because, we look at how many writers out there, they have, 15 novellas and 3 novels. I don't care if they're good or not. They got 1 million words in between 3 different hard drives and they can't call themselves a writer. I'm like, writer's right. It's like literally in the definition.
Yep.
So the term I prefer, and I totally ripped this off on someone too, I forget who, but is the term pre-published. Because as long as you're aspiring, it's the Yoda thing. There is no try, only do.
Yep.
And it does shift your mindset, because if you go, I'm a pre-published author, you're more likely to feel okay about putting out money for that website or whatever doodad you need learning Excel.
Right.
You're not going to feel as guilty about sitting down to write. That's the other reason I really love the writers having a blog. And if you don't want to have a blog, it's totally fine. But as I said, it plays to a writer's strengths. Writers write. And what you can say to people is you can say, I'm a pre-published author. My book isn't out yet, but here's my blog where you can sample some of my writing. And it gives you just that bit of confidence that we need, because all of us have crippling imposter syndrome.
We do. Yeah.
I mean, unless our name rhymes with Stephen King, and I'm pretty sure maybe he even has imposter syndrome.
I think he has said so in his book on writing. Yeah, he said that.
Well, that was like a million years ago. I wonder if he still has it.
That's true.
That's doppelganger who's still writing books has it.
Right. Yeah, because he's mostly on Twitter bitching out everybody.
I know. I'm like, well, that's a lot of words. And it's so funny because we didn't have YA when we were growing up. Like, our parents were just so thrilled we were reading. Like, what are you reading? It. Flowers in the Attic. Books about incest.
Because why not? That was such a weird series too.
But it is a shift in mindset, because if you say I'm pre-published, then you at least have a goal. And you're more likely to be okay with spending money and dedicate so much time to writing. I pay for Ning, which is just like a stupid looking message board. We've been running it since 2012. We've been going strong for about 8 years. We meet in the chat room every day, and we have for 8 years.
That's amazing.
Monday through Friday. And we sprint from 8 in the morning till whenever we just tap out and give up.
Got it.
And it isn't just writing. You can say, hey guys, my hands hurt. I'm going to get up and do dishes this next sprint. Because it's just an hour at a time. And you'd be shocked how much you can get done with just a timer, some focus, and some peer pressure to make sure you're staying on track.
100%.
But I paid for it because I was like, I know they have groups like this in Facebook, but I don't have control of the group. I don't want to spend time moderating. I want to be benevolent dictator of my own place. Like, there's no ads, no nonsense. I'll kick people. I don't have to, but I'll kick people off if I have to. But it was just where you could go have like a writer water cooler, but because we do get a little weird being off on our own.
Yes, we do.
And you do have the peer pressure, but you're not getting distracted with somebody may be wrong on the internet. I must go correct them, or an
Go
ad
figure.
or a
What are you talking
video.
about?
And so it's just, I'd like to integrate that into my website. It's coming. It's on the things to do list, man.
Right. We have so many things on our to-do list all the time. We wear so many hats these days as authors. It's crazy.
Well, I was totally convinced I was going to have servants by this point in life. But that was also when I thought that an 187,000 word book was actually a real thing too. So,
hey man, if you're writing epic fantasy, it probably could have been.
Yeah, well, not so much. It's sort of like when they would say, you need to start your book in the action. I'm like, okay, so I had a car chase and a bomb and some ninjas, which is kind of weird because it's a women's fiction, but
because why not? Hey man, you could have like ninjas who are women.
Yeah, I was like, that's not what they're meaning by starting in the action. But I also had fun with it because I didn't understand. I mean, what people fail to understand is you didn't really learn how to write in school. Okay.
Yeah.
Your teacher didn't give a crap that you used 15 metaphors on page 1 because the goal was to teach you how to use a friggin' metaphor, not to make you publishable to a large mass market audience.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yep.
And, think of, I don't know if you went to college, but I just assume people did. What was the longest thing you wrote in college? And I had a writing intensive degree. I have a degree in political economy. Right. And the longest thing I wrote was a 60-page paper, and 12 of those pages were citations.
Sure. I'm trying to think. I'm not even sure. I think the longest thing I wrote was actually in 8th grade when I wrote my first novel. And that wasn't even an assignment. It was just like,
yeah, but that's what
I got an
saying
idea.
Is people act like you learn how to write in school. You really don't.
No.
I mean, you can learn nonfiction in school, but as far as a novel, and it's like, okay, let's just take 100,000 words, we're not in epic fantasy, but we're not in a novella, that you have to get 5 acts, because I count normal world and denouement. Normal world, act 1, act 2, act 3, denouement. We got to get character arc, plot arc, dialogue. It has to make sense. You can't have redundant characters. All of these plates that you have to juggle at the same time over the span of anywhere from 50 to 150,000 words.
Yeah.
That is not easy.
No.
I mean, I thought it really was 187. That's fair. Easy. But so that's why I started blogging about craft, because I was literally trying to teach myself craft and I was too poor for an MFA.
Sure. That makes sense.
So I was going and I was reading some of my favorite craft books, and then I would go talk about it on the blog. I wasn't the expert. I was just like, this is what Les Edgerton said, and let me expound on that. And then like a few years in, suddenly people were asking me for advice. I'm like, you think I know what I'm doing? Awesome.
Sweet.
I still feel that way.
I think we all do. Like the more we learn, the less we know, I swear. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to some of the presentations in Idaho and I'm like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. I'm going to make friends with these people.
You can't do that, Kristen. You have to be like, wow, look at all the abundance of information and like knowledge in this room, and just know that like you have everything's figure outable. So if there was insight,
it is. That's why I'm going to make friends with them, because I don't want to figure it outable.
Yeah, but you're going to have to figure it outable by asking them.
I'm going to make friends with them. I don't want to learn it.
Through osmosis, it becomes yours.
We are not alone.
Yes.
I'm an amazing editor. You need a proofreader. I need to know what mojo you're using over there. Break it down into small sentences, tiny words.
I love that.
Well, I am so, we have one of our regular writers, Grace Maria. She's doing these Dragon Mr. Darcy books, and they're fantastic. And I mean, she is the most organized person on the planet. She's got spreadsheets for her spreadsheets. And she's just, I look at her and I'm just like, what kind of witchcraft are you using? And then she comes up from Houston to visit me, and like my whole desktop is full of all this stuff that I thought was cool that I've screenshotted, and it's like all over my screen. And she's like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know.
But it's fun. It's great.
But how do you just have this stuff everywhere? I'm like, well, I can kind of figure out where it is. But
it's searchable. It's fine.
Well, just because you want to go global domination, you outsource, you get the people who can make it happen.
Yes, I agree. I completely agree with that. At a certain point, you just have to be like, I can't do everything. Here's someone else's job. It's fine.
Well, that's why I'm so glad that the writers' conferences are coming back, because that is some advice I would give, is just whether you come to Wanna Tribe, wherever you find your people, you don't have to do this stuff by yourself. And if you try to do it by yourself, it's a ticket to being crazier than you probably already are trying to be a writer.
Right.
I mean, and I would say pay for it, but again, that's why I still like the networking, because they can keep you from getting ripped off.
Yep.
Those are the people that can get you to a new cover designer, like, so I can leave Corey to his regular job and not keep bribing him out of his day job. I don't like change.
There's many of us that are like that. I completely understand.
Yeah, we're like an enigma wrapped in a puzzle and a conundrum. We're like, everything's changing all the time. We're kicking things over, and then we're like, we don't like change. We wanted to stay the same after we just kicked it over.
Yeah, and we're the one that, you're right. I'm right there with you. We just kicked it over. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you're like, well, was it better the other way? But I got to start all over again.
Dang it! Why did I do that?
I don't know. We're disruptor types of personalities, which is great, because this definitely was a market that needed disruption.
For sure.
In fact, I should probably put some of my blogs together that would give like the history of publishing 2.0.
That'd be super fascinating.
5.0.
I would love that.
Like, my blog started out doing commentary on Borders versus Barnes and Noble.
Wow. That is
all the
craziness.
way down to when Barnes and Noble dropped off the New York Times bestseller list. I wrote one that went viral like amazingly well. It was called Goliath Has Fallen. And it went truly viral because I had friends who were authors who were like, my daughter's a stockbroker, and she called me and told me if I'd seen this article, and I was like, I've been following her for years. But I went through like kind of the history of things, and then when companies get to a point that their debt is the most valuable thing that they have to offer. Right. And that's when you know that something's going really badly wrong. But what's been frustrating with the publishing industry, and maybe you've had this, is that we are idea people. And we're like, but you could do this, and you could do this, and you could do this, and you could do this. And they're like, no, they will always. And you're like, come on, it isn't working. Just, I feel like Jerry Maguire, like, help me help you.
Yes. And they're so slow to make changes.
Yeah. Why? And I'm like, okay, Barnes and Noble, put a bar in there.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
Put a wine bar, pair some wine with it, partner up with a wine bar. I'm telling you, tipsy people buy stuff they didn't even know they wanted.
Fair. You could still have both ends, wine bar on one side, and you can have the coffee shop on the other.
Yes, but I don't like the coffee shop, and I know I'm going to get some haters out there, because what happens is you get the person that nurses the $5 coffee and then uses you as a lending library. See, so drinking people are the ones will be like, so you're saying this is a self-help inspirational Christian erotica? Okay. I get 50% off the next one. Hit me up. I have a sister-in-law that's gonna make her so embarrassed.
I love it.
Amish erotica, 50 Shades of Hay.
Oh my gosh.
I know, you can dress me up. You can't take me anywhere.
I love it.
See, folks, this is why they don't let me out.
Speaking of that, Kristen, maybe we should go to the whole, if people want to find out more about you part, where do they go to learn more about you, your books, everything that you do, like get down the one.
There's that service you can pay for to look for a criminal record.
Right. Other than that one.
Oh, all right. No, wow. All of a sudden my mic's being weird. Truthfully, if you Google Kristen Lamb author, it'll take you the blog is the best, kind of my home base where I'm always going to be. I kind of tiptoe across LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and then get back to my thing. But I'm always accessible on the blog. And if you leave comments, I give away all kinds of cool stuff. Like I look at your pages and tell you what to fix. Or if I really like them, I send them on to agent friends.
Nice.
So I have a contest that I always run in my comments section. Buy my book. Just spam people. I don't know you. Buy my book.
Right. It'd be fine. It'd be great.
Yeah. I've kept everything kind of the same. I think if you get Kristen Lamb TX Texas, that's going to find me on Instagram which I'm only there to make my pictures look better. I haven't. It's a selfie. Hold on before the makeup settles in. Let's get it on Instagram to get some good lighting.
Right. I'm with you on
Hey,
that.
I told you I have no shame. Um, uh, I think you need to find your wheelhouse, and if it isn't, then I'm not going to be exploring new things. I was waiting for the technology to get like, yes, I was an early adopter to podcasting, but you needed like a broadcasting degree to figure that crap out. Where it's
Right.
becoming so I was like, I'm going to take what I learned from it. I'm going to wait until the tech gets easier to use.
Yeah.
So, like, if you follow me on my blog, you're pretty much going to know whatever I'm up to, because I'm not doing a newsletter because I've got enough email. So I don't do that to other people yet.
Sure. Yep. Yep.
But, it may be coming, but that's just a hub where I think I said in my last post, I'm like, guys, I'm here. You're stuck with me. So unless like something happens to me or the internet goes down, I will be here at some point.
I love
So
it.
if you just
Awesome.
go under Kristen Lamb and Google it, you can pretty much find whatever you need.
And I'll make sure that it's in the show notes for this podcast episode as well. So obviously it makes it a little easier to just go find you and like link on over right away.
Yeah. I mean, I'm lazy. I just Google it. Like, I don't know what like it's
I
Kristen
would do the
Lamb.
same thing as well.
Yeah. But, I mean, we're getting into a world that's so weird, it's so dichotomous, and that we just work, we never stop working, but we keep inventing things to let us rest more, but we just do that so that we can do more.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. And that doesn't work well.
yeah. So, but thank you for having me on. I hope, I don't know if I answered all your questions or.
You answered everything wonderfully, Kristen. Thank you for
Okay.
being here and sharing all of your wealth of knowledge. We're going to have you back because I know that you are so knowledgeable, like about characters, about story arc, about story structure. And obviously we kind of touched on all of these things here, but I knew that I wanted to bring you on and talk about like your overarching theme first so that people get a taste of like who you are, because you're just hilarious and funny and like everything that you do. It's like since I've known of your blog and of you from back in the day, it's like, God, I love this woman. She's so funny. And like
I have no
being in
shame.
person,
I'm like,
I love
try
it.
it. I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? It doesn't work out.
It's so great. I love it.
Try podcasting. Okay, I tried it, I liked it, but I'm gonna wait for that. I did feature writing, even though it's like, aren't magazines going away? Yeah, they did. After I wrote a couple of really nice features. But that's just kind of how you'll be shocked when you go out and you try things that you may end up into something that you're like, I never thought that I would enjoy that. And yet I found my jam.
Yeah.
Or you can at least go there and go, nope.
That was
and why.
Yeah.
And you can always turn it into a funny story. I mean,
right.
I was so, I guess, what is the word, touchy over my first novel in the beginning. And then when I learned to kind of lighten up and start making fun of it and just saw it for what it was, like, it was just me learning. It was just me playing.
Yeah.
And I wish I could go back to that Kristen Lamb sometimes.
Sure.
Because before the rules and before rules, what are those? I don't want them to inhibit my creativity.
Right? Rude. Why would you do that?
And now that I'm like, no, I can't. And I'd like to get more of that Kristen Lamb back.
Yeah.
The first one, she needed a playpen. she's in everything. Just in fact, playpen with a lid on it. I think we call it a dog crate. But
nice.
Yeah, lock her up. And now that I've learned all that stuff, now it's like I'm almost like tentatively getting out to that playful self again. And all writers to one degree or another, you're going to go through that. That's why you start with the pre-published. Just start with I'm pre-published. You're going to be a baby writer. There's awesome things to that, in that you're going to be too dumb to know how dumb you are.
Yep. And that's okay. That's okay.
And it's okay, because you're going to miss those days. And
yes,
then you're going to get in those days like learning piano, where you're learning like the chords and nothing is fun and nothing you write is great. And then you're going to start getting the hang of it. And then hopefully more of that playful part will come in. But like you were saying, with this industry changing, we're always going to have to kind of go back and be that amateur, that neophyte again, and be willing to learn. Yeah. If you're willing to learn and you're willing to laugh at yourself, you'll get really far.
I agree with you on that. And you have to have fun with this industry because of the fact that it's changing, it's shifting so much. So having having fun and allowing it to be fun is so critical. It really is. Because
Well,
otherwise you're just
because
going to
it'll
kill
come out in
yourself.
your writing. Like if you're
Yep.
just in this daily grind of I've got to do it, I've got to do it, it's gonna come out in your writing.
Yep.
Like people, I mean, I promise I don't make friends that take hostages. You're gonna have to cut me off at one point, but I do tell people, like, they're like, what's the best form of social media? I'm like, the one you enjoy.
Yeah.
Because if I go and tell you you need to blog and you would rather be waterboarded than blog, people are gonna feel that. Like it
Yeah.
isn't gonna come across as positive. Whereas I haven't quite figured out how TikTok sells books, just because I don't need another thing to do right at the moment. I will look at it.
Yep.
But I'm like, if you really are good at it and you love it, clearly it's working for some people. It's like years ago we were in Weight Watchers and we were all having the argument over what was the best exercise for losing weight. And then the instructor came in, or the leader, or whatever they call it in Weight Watchers. And she says, oh, well, do you know what the best exercise for losing weight is? And we're all like, oh, tell us, please. She's like, the one you're going to do.
Mm.
We're like, touche.
That's fair. That's fair.
And the same thing with what you teach and I teach and everybody else. Like, you can go find all these other things, and ultimately the one you're going to do.
Yep.
That's going to be the best one.
Absolutely.
Or at least the one that you can make yourself do, because you're pre-published now. You are no longer aspiring.
Yes. Yes. You are an author. Boom.
Exactly.
Agreed.
And as you go along, I am a pre-internationally best-selling legendary Netflix making author. I didn't think that out, but you can make it bigger and bigger.
Yes, bigger and bigger goals. Aspire for more. We'll even say.
Kristen Lamb's series on Netflix are going to be so popular that when people don't watch Netflix, stocks go down and they cry.
Yes, absolutely.
See, that 8 is becoming a lot more apparent right now, isn't it?
It kind of is.
The Enneagram.
Yeah. I think it.
Well, thank you so much for having me on here. I don't want to let you go because I'm having fun.
Yeah, I don't want to let you go either.
I don't talk writing.
Well,
we will books again. I'm like,
we will have you back 100%, because we're going to have to talk about, like, even your talk that you had done in Idaho about the villains and like talking about villains and all those things. Yeah. So hold tight. We're going to have you back and do it.
And they tried to kill me in that room. So it's amazing that people loved it.
Wow. That's amazing.
It was so hot in there and the lights were up and I thought I was going to pass out.
Oh no.
So and then the lights were shining off the screen, so I couldn't see my own PowerPoint, and I have 2500 vision up close. So I couldn't see my screen and I couldn't see this screen. And I was like, finally I was like, screw it, we're going to riff it. And I go staggering out of the room like, water. Everybody's like, you're so amazing. I'm like, really? Because I kind of wanted to die the entire time. I was pretty much praying for death.
Yeah, it gets a little bit crazy when you're in those rooms and you're giving information, and obviously if you can't see what the heck you're doing, you're having to go off. I mean, Becca Syme, poor lady, her entire presentation at the end there wasn't working. Like
I know. I was laughing at her. I was like, because I had joked I was on the self-publishing panel, and people are like, readers want paper. Writers tend to get like highfalutin about it. I'm like, I don't care. Paper, digital, audio. If you want my book acted out in inspirational dance, we can talk money and make it work. I do not care. And so I had just said that, and then she came in for her presentation and she's doing all this. And I was like, oh, it can be done. I just saw a PowerPoint acted out in inspirational dance.
Nice. Love it. Oh,
but that's the key to it. Is just, you're going to get knocked down, but you just get up and laugh about it and blog about it.
Yep. 100%. And just keep having fun with it.
Exactly. And I can't wait to come back. I hope to talk soon, and just thank you for letting me on here. I get to hang out with other writers.
Thank you for coming here. I'm so excited that you were here. Thanks, Kristen.